start shortly, and we aim to be done by 12 noon. Okay, so folks, it's 11:01 by my timekeeping, so if it's okay with you all, we're going to get started. So good morning again. You're all very welcome to our webinar this morning on sales and marketing strategy alignment. Just to introduce ourselves, who's who, you have kind of three co-hosts this morning, one of whom is myself. My name is Carl Blake. I am the Network Manager of the Galway Executive SkillNet. I'm also joined by Denise Rocks, who is the Manager of Regional Skills West, who is the Western Regional Skills Forum. And our keynote speaker today, our practitioner expert, is Rory Conroy, who's a VP from SiteMinder. So just briefly to give you a little bit of context as to, I think most of you probably know who we are, but some of you maybe not. So I just start with ourselves. So Galway Executive SkillNet. So we're a training network that's been in existence actually for about 16 years now, believe it or not. And we're an enterprise-led network. And what we're about is providing quality, relevant training at a time, place, and a price that works for businesses, particularly the small micro businesses who really need the help. And you can take it in the last 4 or 5 months, many of you will be aware of this, all our offerings have gone online. Previously we would have done a lot of classroom-based training, but in that space of time we've delivered over 150 courses, believe it or not, and they range from information sessions like this, a sort of a focused 1-hour webinar, down to long-running, certified programs that have a QQI qualification that span over a number of sessions over a few weeks. So anything in between. But the two key words I would cite there are quality and relevance, and that's really why we're here today. And we're delighted to partner with the Regional Skills Forum. If you're not aware of it, is a group who, one of their primary aims is to align the needs of industry with the provision of training by public sector, third level institutions, further education, etc. And the SkillNet Ireland networks have been very, very involved with this, and Galway Executive, we've been very involved with Regional Skills West, actually since the get-go. But it's a really good project that has emanated, that's really got momentum going now, called the Sales Professional Network. And if you're not a member of it, Denise is going to mention it later on. They're doing some really good stuff, and this project has been born out of that. Very briefly on etiquette, I assume, guys, you're all familiar with it, but two quick things. Number one, it's best if you obviously keep yourselves on mute, because Rory's presentation will last for give or take 40 minutes. But at the end of it, we'll have a Q&A, and feel free to come in. But we would invite questions on the run by typing them into the chat box. It's going to be monitored by myself, Denise, and Patricia from the NUI Galway School of Business. So yeah, so to go back to the Sales Professional Network, some really exciting projects, and we had the idea of running this masterclass delivered by Rory. And just to give you a little bit of context, go back to one of the aims of the Skills Forum is to align the needs of industry and the provision out there. In Ireland, and in fairness, not just in Ireland, globally, a problem that particularly third level institutions have is making their content relevant and meeting the needs of industry, and that would get a lot of criticism from college, not so much in this field, but other areas like maybe engineering or science. You'd hear a lot of commentary about that. But this project here, I think you'll see, is a really good example of how it can work extremely well when there's good collaboration, because we're all here together. Like, we have NUI Galway, we have the GMIT involved in this project, and we've industry, SkillNet Networks ourselves as well. And I know that one of the core elements of the BCom program that runs out of the NUI Galway, it's the J.E. Kearns School of Business and Economics, so it's known. In my day, in the 80s and 90s, it was the UCG marketing department, but times have moved on. But delighted to have Anne Walsh here on the call as well, and Patricia from the marketing department. Anne is the program director of marketing practice. And the alignment of sales and marketing, I know, is a key component of what they do. And by making sure it's cutting edge, they engage in guest lecturers and practitioners like we have Rory. And that's why we're here today. So folks, that's all I want to say about what this is about. Rory's going to present now for about 40 minutes, take you through this topic. And where we're going here with this is, when we're finished, Denise will bring in some polling questions, because there's only so much Rory can cover in 40 minutes. But we envisage having deeper dive sessions if you're interested in learning more about these topics in the autumn, where we're very happy to deliver them and support them with funding, etc. So that's it for me. At this point, I'm going to hand you over to Rory Conroy, who is the Vice President of Global Growth Markets in local company SiteFinder. So Rory, I'm going to stop screen sharing and let you in now.
Super. Thank you, Carol. Just bear with me 1 second, folks. Maybe Carol, give me the thumbs up that you can see my present. Cool. Excellent.
Perfect.
Good stuff. Well, thanks, folks. Thanks very much for taking the time out to spend a little time speaking about and hopefully learning a bit about sales and marketing alignment. I'm delighted to have the chance to speak with you today. I've been very lucky to have been involved with NUI over the last year or so, both on a guest lecture perspective and then having the great opportunity to put together a master's program around sales and marketing alignment, and that's something I delivered last year in close connection with Anne and with Patricia, who are both in this call. So today, I know we've probably got quite a broad group on the line, and I'm going to cover quite a lot of material, and it's going to be quite broad. Again, there might be some stuff in here that really resonate with where some businesses are at or individuals are at. Maybe some stuff that may seem, quite distant or far away, but I think that the main thing I want to get across is that the fundamentals of pretty much everything I'll go through is as relevant as it is for the biggest companies out there, which I'll share some examples, as it is for a sole trader and SMB. And it is important to recognize that, because I think often we get a little bit daunted, particularly in the SMB sector, by looking at what the superpowers out there do in terms of your Googles, your Facebooks, etc. But the fundamentals is the thing that lends itself very, very well when they're understood. So hopefully I'll give a good flavor on what that's like over the next 40 minutes or so. So first of all, for those of you that have kind of, I suppose, worked in business full stop and have had a relationship with sales and marketing, I think traditionally they're a bit like oil and water. They haven't always gotten on together, and I think that's a huge piece of the challenge of why businesses don't grow these days. And again, when we look at sales and marketing departments, that can be the one person. Again, the sole trader is a sales person. They're a marketeer. They're absolutely everything. But the importance of the correlation and integration of both those departments to have shared goals and shared outcomes is the critical piece. And this is where even today, so many companies really, really struggle to get this right, where marketing operate in a silo with their own KPIs or key performance indicators, and sales have separate goals, and they just don't talk to each other in terms of what success looks like. So what we'll talk about today will hopefully shine a bit more of a light of how we might be able to have sales and marketing working closely together, and being totally on the same page and complementing each other in order to help drive growth and recovery, and that's what a lot of us are in today, right? As we're coming, whether we're out of COVID or we're still battling the headwinds of many things. It is important not to lose sight of the fact that right now there's a sprint on at the moment for companies to become relevant, to be able to move online if they're not online, to be able to gain market share against maybe old competitors that may not have been able to adapt to the current situation quite as nimbly. And therefore, for me, I believe there's a great opportunity even at the moment, even though it might feel like it's the toughest of times. It's actually a phenomenal time to think through how you might start growing your business and positioning your business. And to help that, here the three kind of four key areas I'll go through today is nailing your niche, the fundamentals around creating a sales pipeline, we'll then look a bit on the customer side then from both a strategy and retention perspective. So starting off with nailing your niche, and again, you know, this is part of a program I delivered pre-Christmas and pre-COVID, but absolutely the fundamentals are actually truer now than they ever were before about nailing your niche and understanding who you are as a business and who you're trying to attract as a customer, and what, you know, what you can do insanely great. You know, I think where, you know, often companies fall down is they try to be all things to all people, and therefore they don't have that clear identity or that clear added value in terms of their brand positioning. And the importance of nailing your niche and understanding where you win and where you can be most successful and doing that insanely great. And based on that success, then bridging out into other niches that you want to dominate is a very important piece of work to do in order to be able to ensure that you're relevant and not just delighting your existing customer base, but attracting customers that have not even heard of you. So in terms of kind of asking your question, have you nailed your niche? You know, I suppose the question asked is, do salespeople and customers get confused by all the product options? You know, are they clear in what you offer and what you stand for? Or are they a bit confused in terms of what to push and from a salesperson perspective and what solutions to put in front, whether it's services or products or a combination of both? And if you were to ask 10 customers what you stand for as a business, would they all give the similar answer? And if the answer to that is no, it doesn't feel like you've probably nailed your niche the way that you need to in order to be able to really connect with your existing and potential audience in the future. You know, don't know in terms of salespeople what to buy or to sell first, so they struggle along trying to buy or sell a little bit of everything. So again, you often get that in company dynamics where salespeople often just sell what's easy to sell, and whatever the customer wants, they'll just sell it to them. But again, without really understanding the value proposition that you have and who, from a sales perspective, you're targeting, and trying to understand in terms of their business model and make that connection, you're going to have those kinds of struggles. So that's where confusion happens. And for me, confusion and lack of clarity in terms of the customer journey and everything that goes with it is one of the biggest derailers of success of any business. And that is the bit that slows companies down, that paints an ambiguous picture in the minds of customers, and puts new customers off you know, kind of engaging with businesses because they're just not sure of who they are and what they stand for. And it goes back to that word focus. So again, a lack of focus distracts from being insanely great at just one thing. And again, you know, it is really important to have a lesser amount of things that you do insanely great and have as your top priority things as a business that you're trying to achieve, and that becomes your niche. And once you do that and you retain customers and you attract more customers and you really nail that niche, then you look to branch out and see, you know, what that next niche that you want to dominate might look like. And I guess just for, and again, big company example, but you know, I think probably a lot of people here have seen the movie Steve Jobs or read the book, and you know, to quote him there, he's as proud of what we do, proud of what we don't do as I am of what we do. And for those of you that have seen the movie, you know, in 1997, Steve Jobs went back to Apple after taking a period off, and at that time they were selling over 350 products to, you know, so many different customers, so many different regions, all over the world. So they'd gone from a fairly focused business to trying to be all things to all people. And in a product meeting that's glorified by the movie, he goes and he puts this grid up on the board, which is a very simple axis where he has got the consumer and pro at the top, and then desktop and portable. And these become the 4 products that the whole business hustles around and puts all energy into. And then you fast forward 13 years later, and Apple's been named Company of the Decade. And I know Tim Cook at the time was the COO, now CEO, and address to the shareholders very much laid it on the line where he's never seen a business that has had such focus, that does less things insanely well, and says no to good ideas and no to great ideas every day because of the distraction that may take away from nailing the 3 or 4 critical products that they want to be insanely great at. And again, that's how Apple recovered from being on a slippery slope and going out of all relevance, like a lot of their peers at the time have done since, to becoming, you know, the superpower that they are today. And again, big company example, but the fundamentals remain true. Identifying what your core focus is, what you're here to do and to achieve, and being very, very diligent and focused on spending your time again and again at ensuring that you're top of your game in the things that you put yourself forward for is the critical piece. And all that's shiny isn't gold. Because something looks like an opportunity, there's an opportunity cost of going to do that, because it takes time away from what you signed off as being the top things that you want to achieve. So the point here is pretty much around focus and ensuring that what you put your mind to and what you kind of, I suppose, put your colors to the mast in terms of a business, you do so with great focus and in a repeatable way that makes it insanely great, that makes it very difficult for the competition to be able to compete or live with the focus and the delivery that you have as a business. And here's a few examples, you know, again, just a small piece there around growth. It comes with focusing on where you have the best chances of winning customers, making them successful, building reputation, tangible results, and then growing from there. And what you have here is some great companies and huge companies that again may seem, you know, a million miles off, you know, any SMB in the country, but they all started somewhere. So if you look at Salesforce, they started focusing, their first niche that they nailed was a Salesforce automation, and they've mushroomed into, you know, pretty much a plug-in for all businesses. And our own business, we have our voice over IP, our phone system plugged into Salesforce. We have all of our emails tracked into Salesforce. Everything plugs into Salesforce. It's become this connector of an entire business and being able to pull reports and being able to look at trends. But it all started as a Salesforce automation tool. Similar to Facebook, they went and they nailed the Ivy League schools first and foremost. They built up that following there, and then from that niche, they then began to mushroom into the hugely successful company they are today. You've got PayPal, who started off with eBay users, and Amazon, obviously, that started off with books, and again have moved into the sphere of pretty much all things to all people, but only in a very systematic way of nailing the niche, establishing an identity, and then moving into the next logical niche and continuing to build their business model based on success. And this is what, you know, when it comes to nailing a niche, I think one of the signs that you've nailed a niche is that you're consistently able to find and sign up with unaffiliated customers. And in the next slide, we'll look a little bit closer at that in terms of the arc of attention and attracting low engaged customers versus high engaged. That is really that smiley face in the middle there is where you want to be. You want to be at the intersection of target, pain, and solution. And you know, back to that word we've used a couple of times already, but niche here means focused. It means knowing exactly who that target customer is and what is that pain that that customer has, and how you can put that solution in place to be able to address that pain. So again, you want to solve for that pain that a customer has that you've identified, and do it in a believable, reputable way. So again, target customer, identify the pain, provide the solution, and that's where that intersection works in the middle of being able to satisfy that niche. And again, if that's something that you can really zone in on as a business and really start to get that overlapping of target, pain, and solutions, you really have a very, very strong platform and foundation to scale and to grow and to build your investment against. Again, it's all about getting that sound foundation of how you're addressing your customer base, and based on that, being able to set higher expectations than you might have in the past. And we mentioned it briefly there earlier around the arc of attention. You know, what you have in the left side is the no trust, which is mainstream buyers. So you as a business, the majority of buyers are mainstream. You know, 85–90% of them may never have heard of you whatsoever. And then you have the high trust on the other side. These are your friends, your existing customers. These are, you know, people who are just really in the niche of the business you're in, and they really understand your business model, and they're super high trust. And then you've got that the gap of attention, it's called, in between. And the big challenge for businesses is how you take the mainstream, the 85% of your possible kind of customer base that are in the no trust side, and get them to make that leap across that gap into the high trust side. And again, that goes back to nailing the niche. If you have that real clear identity of who you are and who your target customer is, and why it is what you do that delights them and delivers against that core pain that they're facing and helps them be successful, you're going to start attracting customers that have, you know, that have only broadly come across you in the past because they're seeking you out. And when they come across you as a business, that you really resonate with what they're trying to achieve. So looking at that gap and how you might go about bridging that gap, you're looking at email, you know, when we kind of bring in, I suppose, a marketing lens on it, you're looking at email marketing, or you're looking at maybe web banners. You've got probably about a 0.3 to 3 second window to grab attention there. So this is where the subject header of the emails you push out is so important. This is where, you know, if you're doing web advertising of any sorts, whether it's SEM or SEO, whatever, or display, it's really important that you grab that attention, because, you know, that attention can be gone in literally a split second. Then you've got cold calling. Again, that's a 3 to 30 second window. You could, you know, get a hang up straight away. And this again is where it's so important that salespeople have that elevator pitch. And that elevator pitch is that, you know, pre-rehearsed 30-second pitch of you bump into a prospect in an elevator. How are you going to convince them in 30 seconds that, you know, working with you and believing in your products is something they want to do? So again, that's that kind of window of opportunity you have, is somewhere between 3 to 30 seconds to make that impression. Otherwise, they're going to stay in the no trust side, and they're not going to make that leap across the chasm over to the high trust side of being a new customer in the future. Door to door, again, you know, 3 seconds, perhaps that's how long it takes to close the door in your face. But again, you've got probably a slightly higher window there, potentially having that conversation. And again, it's a bit obviously more personable than it is doing a cold call. But again, that elevator pitch is still super relevant there, of ensuring that you get to the point and you grab attention right from the beginning. Then referrals, and now we're moving into, I suppose, the sphere of, you know, some of the most valuable and most influential lead sources that you can get to help drive no trust into high trust. And again, you have a much wider window of opportunity when a prospect is coming in as a referral. And this is where your existing customers come in so important. We'll touch on it a little later as well, but getting your existing customer base to refer new customers is hugely important. And then lastly, there is your best friends, your advocates, your family members, your customers that really sing your praises. Who'll always give you unlimited time. So that's just some dynamics around, you know, the no trust side and ensuring that you're nailing your niche, and how you bridge that gap to bring no trust mainstream buyers into the high trust side, where they become, you know, ideally best friends, at least best friends that purchase your products and use your services often. So last slide in this section is, how do you know that you nailed it? So again, we've touched on some of these already, but popular pain, like you solve a pain for a customer, a clear, identifiable pain. If I'm looking at my own business and leading a sales team globally, you know, a big pain we have is how we ensure that we move demonstrations of our product to closed customers. That's a big pain, and if we can improve our kind of win rate and how we perform there, that's the type of company that I really want to work for. And there's so many of them out there that have just such a niche that they've identified, that their whole business model is based on how I help companies improve that win rate between showing a product and the prospect purchasing it. Tangible results, then you need to be able to show results that matter. And again, you know, that needs to be something that's believable, and something that makes a meaningful difference to that business. Again, if you can't, you know, in your sales pitch and your engagement with a prospect, show that you're able to drive the type of results that will make a difference to their business, that meaningful business, again, linked to popular pain. If you can't drive the results that will address that pain that customer has, you're going to find it very difficult to be successful. Believable solution, they got to believe that they can use it, that what you're saying is true. This is where case studies come in, super important, to kind of give that confidence that what you do and how you work with people is done in an authentic way, in an honest way. Those type of words go a long way in terms of, you know, customers obviously making decisions of providers they work with. So it must be a believable solution. Identifiable targets. So, you know, again, you've identified your niche. You need to be able to identify enough prospects within that niche. So it can't be so narrow that you can't actually identify enough prospects to go after. So it needs to be a broad enough pool of potential customers that you're able to identify and go after. And then the last bit then is unique genius, which again is what differentiates you from everyone else, what makes you different, what makes you special. And that's, Again, a really important piece that should just pop when it comes to every interaction a prospective customer has with you as a business, whether it's your online presence or your offline presence. So moving along then onto the second piece, which is around creating a sales pipeline. And first, I'm going to just take you on a little bit of a journey of, I suppose, where sales has come from. And, you know, some people on this phone will be very comfortable with sales. Some people may not be comfortable at all, and may have, you know, some impressions of sales which are closer to a second-hand car dealer than anything else. So let me just take you through a little bit of where sales has come from, and then we'll get into the whole pipeline kind of building piece. So again, you know, that's just a bit of an infographic of, you know, some key moments of where sales has come from the barter stage right up to social selling today. And again, what you really started to see in the sales evolution was a huge amount of sophistication coming in the 80s, and particularly through the 90s and into the noughties, where the likes of spin selling in 1988 and then revised in 1995 is still hugely successful today, and a huge part of, you know, most all good sales houses. You got Challenger Sales there, which is, you know, really burst on the scene in 2012. Again, you know, a very strong dynamic of challenging prospects in a really kind of, I suppose, engaging way to work with you. And then obviously you've got social selling, which is, you know, blown up kind of slowly from 2000 onwards, but obviously has become hugely popular in the last 5 to 10 years, and even more so post-COVID, when a lot of our bricks and mortar options of working with people have been taken away from us. And this is where old sales were. So in terms of old sales, you know, target prospects that are a good fit for you, cold call prospects with your elevator pitch, and push prospects to your sales process. So again, it was very much salesperson driving the agenda constantly and telling prospects, this is what you want and this is what I'm going to give you. So again, very much old school one-way communication of, this is my solution, this is what it is, you need to take it. Whereby when you look at modern sales today, it's very much about listening to what prospects have to say and where they're starting their buy cycle, engaging prospects with their interests, and then helping prospects through their buying process. So again, it's, you know, the big thing that has really changed across, you know, particularly over the last 10 years or so, is that it's not about the salesperson. It's not about the company per se. When a salesperson is engaging with a prospect, it's about the customer. And for me, and, you know, having worked in sales for a long time now and interviewing very regularly in terms of bringing in new salespeople, the one thing that always sets a great salesperson apart from a good or an average salesperson is they're really good at asking open-ended questions, and they're an active listener. And the art of active listening is a very rare commodity that really isn't, you know, as prevalent as you might think. But the really good salespeople that can actively listen and really understand what a prospect wants are the ones that will and are the most successful. And there you have a little bit of wrap up of it, but you've got old sales, there's very product focused, it's linear, they interrupt, they push, they push, they push. But new is very much listening to the customer. It's about the customer, it's a fluid journey, and it's quite digitally driven as well. And this brings us on to, I guess, that kind of traditional funnel, and most people will be aware of that sales funnel that, you know, starts at the top and prospects go in at the top, whether they like it or not, and they get pushed right down to the bottom. Lots leak out, but we try to get as many in as possible to come out the other end. But today's world is very much a meandering river and very much a social space where a lot of prospects will have done a huge amount of work and research on you before they've even engaged with you. And they may pop in at very different stages in that traditional sales funnel, whereby they've done their online search, they've done that, you know, reviewed online communities, they've looked at competitors, and they've made an educated kind of view of things before they've even reached out to you. And again, this is where the hand-in-hand kind of work between sales and marketing is so important. Because salespeople must be very comfortable of prospects that are being engaged by marketing through social methods in particular, engaging with sales at different stages. And the stage salesperson needs to be able and comfortable to move from that top of the funnel awareness conversation right down to the evaluation conversation, because again, prospects are coming in at different stages of awareness. So moving into how to create a sales pipeline, and again, I just want to kind of, I suppose, share a few lessons around this space with the group here. Is that it's understanding the numbers game, but probably bursting a bit of a bubble here. The real trick to sales is that there's no real trick to sales. And I think a lot of us believe that great salespeople are born that way, and they've got the gift of the gab, and that's just what they do. And, you know, they're always going to be in sales, and, you know, that certainly, you know, it doesn't do any harm. But the real kind of, I suppose, that the real trick and the real importance of a good salesperson is pipeline management, is focus, is organization and discipline. They're the things that the output, which is sales, will flow from. So if you're looking at a sales pipeline here, and you're taking an example of a 10% conversion, you're looking at, in terms of, you know, that first prospect chosen. I'm a salesperson, I've identified 10 prospects in that first example there. I managed to get 4 out of those 10 to agree to have a meeting with me. Out of those 4, 2 have requested a proposal, and I win 1. So that gives you a 10% conversion of identifying prospects and engaging with new prospects to the point of winning them. And this is the piece that you need to, that you really need to sweat from a sales perspective, is really understanding the ratios, the win rates between those 4 simple stages is how you drive your business. And again, you know, once you've got that model down, and again, you know, pretty much any business of any size can kind of model it out in terms of what is that chain of events that goes from first touch and first engagement with a prospect all the way through to them signing on the dotted line. What are those steps that, and those moments that matter in between? And really looking at what those win rates are, and ensuring that you have enough prospects at the top of the funnel in the prospect chosen space to be able to get enough out the other end in terms of one. And again, when you have that model in place, and again, that's a piece of work I'd encourage anyone to do. It's about how you improve the win rates between each of those stages then, and that goes down to sales coaching. It goes down to, you know, salespeople being more aware of the industry and more aware of customers, and again, just having much more of a consultative ability that helps improve the win rates. So, you know, you can get more out of each prospect that goes in, and that's the bit that, you know, from a sales pipeline perspective, you really need to sweat. And then secondly, then, is really setting the right kind of goals. You know, there's good goals and there's bad activity goals, and you know, I would say the majority of businesses don't have their goals aligned with what they're trying to achieve. So again, that could be in sales and that's in marketing, but you know, these departments are running against goals that are at odds with what they're trying to achieve, and they don't actually sync and talk to each other. So you can have a goal of dials, and you have salespeople knocking out 50, 60, 70 dials a day, but dials without quality, dials without knowing your niche, dials without having that elevator pitch down is such a waste, and you're burning and churning through prospects because you haven't got that quality in place. So looking at talk time, looking at, again, the quality of those conversations is a huge kind of type of goal to have. And that's just, you know, a typical example of what a sales stages might look like. And again, you know, lots of people have very different variations of whether it's 4 stages, whether it's 7, whether it's 6, or whether it's 10, whatever it might be. But again, you know, for each business, it can be a bit different. And it's important that the stages mean something to every business. So in that example there, you're identifying customers and prospects and you're qualifying them for the view to having a meeting with them, with a view then to, out of those meetings, how many proposals can you send, and then how many can sign on the dotted line, similar to the example we had previously. And again, having a funnel, and the big, you know, I suppose the big takeaway I'd advise if you don't have any kind of a funnel in place, is to put a framework of a funnel in place and try to think through what those stages look like in terms of first touch and those different levels of engagement that ultimately end up with terms being accepted or a deal being done. And then running your business and just trying to really understand of the relationship between them and how you might be able to improve the win rates between each of those stages. How to add more deals. So again, this is, you know, set a daily or a weekly goal for adding more deals. So how do you achieve more deals at the end of the day? That can be done in lots of ways. It can be done, you know, lots of it through hard effort, you know, better prospecting, identifying who you want to go after, and having, again, discipline and structure in your day where a salesperson is focused on outbounding and driving prospecting, and is very organized about how they manage their pipeline to ensure that they can drive more deals. You've got obviously the constant effort that you're just constantly putting in, and it's a repeatable process. The thing about sales is it's a repeatable process. It's not magic. It's not, you know, in the outset, there's no secret sauce to it. You know, and lots of sports teams kind of live and die by it. There's a process that you buy into, and if you service your pipeline and put the right effort with continuously improving the quality of your effort at each of those stages, the outputs will look after itself. And also then get creative about your weekly list. You know, you might get, you know, an inbound call on the phone. You might get someone requesting on your website for a demonstration or something like that. But you need to be creative about how you find those lists. Talk to existing customers, ask for a referral to customers that have left you and say, listen, I know you left us. Can you give me any advice in terms of who we might work better with? The worst thing they can say is no, because there's lots of different ways that you can add creativity and energy into your weekly lists. Bigger deals then, again, I think, the biggest piece here is probably believing as a salesperson that you can actually secure bigger deals, and self-belief is a huge part of that. But also is understanding how bigger companies work and what's needed and what kind of conversation you need to have with a bigger company to actually secure that deal. And then the last piece then is really around bundling. So if you've got multi-products and you've sold one product, the stickiness and engagement of adding a second, third, or fourth product or service means that you're protecting that customer, you're increasing their average deal size, but you're also protecting them from a competitor, because it's much easier to leave a company if you're only one product deep in terms of engagement. It's a whole different game when you're 2, 3, 4 product and services deep, because it's such a fabric of your business. Higher conversion then is working with the right people. So again, as a salesperson, are you talking to the decision maker? Who's the gatekeeper? Who are the influencers? Ensuring that you're spending the right time with the right people to actually drive conversion, which is winning a higher percentage of deals. Go before you're invited. Often, some companies put out a tender in terms of for their business. Don't wait for that to go. Be pushy, get in and try to influence before a tender or an RFP, or request for a proposal, might be sent out, because a lot of companies have already made their mind up. Drop the wrong prospect as soon as possible. If you're talking to the wrong person and you're not getting anywhere, know when the polite way is to step back and move on. And that's that's a critical piece. And then the last piece then is just becoming that consultative type, knowing the customer's business better than your competitors do. And then the last piece in this section then is around less time. So, discover the decision-making process as a company. So again, and ask your existing customers, how do you make decisions? So again, for similar type of customers that you might prospects that you might want to make customers in the future, you understand the chain of command of how certain industries and how certain companies make decisions. To think about it, I'll think about it, I'll come back to you tomorrow on it. That's as a salesperson, it's a great thing to hear, whereby someone says, let me think about it, I need to talk to someone tomorrow. The rebuttal to that is great. I'll call you tomorrow afternoon at 5. You'll have already talked to that person. We'll be able to, iron out any outstanding loose ends at that stage. So again, being able to overcome some of those, I suppose, traditional kind of tough kind of objections to customers is critical. And then knowing when to walk away. I think salespeople often get emotionally connected to prospects that they've been working for 2 or 3 years that ultimately are never going to close. And it's important that, again, the discipline and the focus is there, where salespeople know when enough is enough. And when they maybe put it in the bucket for, I'm going to call them 6 months later, rather than calling them every week, which they might have done for the last year. There's no point, because doing the same thing again and again is probably not going to get a different result. Looking then at customer strategy, I guess the question is, why does it matter? First and foremost, why does a good customer experience matter? And the first point, which is probably quite obvious, is it keeps customers happy, and it ensures that you have an opportunity of retaining them. And that's really, really important, because again, retaining customers and happy customers drive more referrals. There's nothing better than you can get as a business as one of your customers actually telling someone else, you got to go work with these guys, and you getting a call from this new prospect saying, listen, I really want to sit down and have a meeting because I've talked to your customer and they've just been huge advocates of you and they're talking great about you. So customer experience is critical to drive more referrals. It drives that word of mouth, really builds that brand trust. So people say nice things about you, whether it's in the public forum or both offline and online. The likes of review sites is critically important in terms of our online presence and offline presence of what people say. Positive customer reviews there as well, and then ultimately driving a stronger brand loyalty, which again ensures that you have a high retention rate of customers, and customers that are really kind of, I suppose, your advocates, and can play a huge role to helping you be successful even when you don't even know it. And this is where the concept of funnel to flywheel, and again, I'll just introduce it briefly. It's a very interesting concept that HubSpot have kind of trailblazed, particularly over the last 5-6 years. But how you kind of move customers from this rigid funnel perspective into a kind of a flywheel, or an ever-flowing experience that all customers and prospects experience. So looking at what a flywheel is, that graph represents a conversion process. It's shaped like a funnel. We've seen 2 or 3 of them already. And people coming out of the bottom of that funnel have a huge impact on people that go in at the top of it. So again, you can see here that people that are coming out of it, they're super happy and they've had a great experience of that first touch, top of the funnel, which might be that marketing or sales contact, all the way through to becoming a customer. They're in a great space, they're in a positive space, in a space of actually referring, you know, new prospects to get up that ladder and get into your funnel proactively. But the flip side is there as well, that people coming out of the bottom of the funnel can also prevent that. And you know, they often say good news travels much faster than bad news. So again, a bumpy experience, a poor experience, if we're setting the wrong expectations with a prospect and we don't deliver against it, we're given a crappy experience, you know what, they're going to tell people about it. And again, that can be a huge blocker to you growing your business in the future. Again, you're thinking of your online reviews and different ways of influencing and blocking you being successful. So again, the attitude of people has a huge impact in terms of the willingness of future prospects and customers to enter the top of the funnel. And this is where the flywheel comes in around that happy customers provide the energy that fuels the growth. So again, really focusing on the customer experience, ensuring that you delight at every step of the journey, and that happy customer mentality will drive future happy customers and referrals and all the things we've spoken about up until now. And everything you should do should be done with the goal of creating customers that have that positive energy. So if as a company you've bought into it every step of the company, delighting customers and really having that customer focus of ensuring the customer experience is as optimal as it possibly can be, if that is a day in, day out DNA of how a business is running itself, you'll find that that's going to drive new business without you having to pick up the phone and cold call. So again, buying into and kind of from a full company perspective, being bought into this is super important. And that's why the inbound methodology is a circle. So attracting customers, engaging existing customers and delighting them. It's a circle and a self-fulfilling prophecy that if you keep putting that positive effort and energy into what you have and what comes in at the top of the funnel, it'll continue to drive more and more referrals and more engagement at the top of the funnel. And there, there's basically what I hopefully summed up, is that you're not alone, that your customers can be one of the highest and most important growth engines that you possibly could have. And really focusing on that is super important. And then the last section here that we'll cover today is around retaining customers. So looking at that customer strategy experience, and if you haven't got a customer experience in place, there's some simple steps here we'll just look at in terms of how you might just set it up. First and foremost, just mapping the customer experience strategy goals against the business objectives. And again, this is something that often isn't aligned and isn't in the right place, where what you're trying to achieve from a customer experience is at odds with what the company is trying to achieve. So again, looking at the example there in the middle of if one of your objectives is to generate more website traffic, then your customer experience strategy goal should probably focus on developing a user-friendly website. So again, ensuring that what the company is trying to achieve and what customers experience complement each other is the main takeaway from that point. Secondly, then, is showcasing your brand's unique personality. So again, brand and uniqueness is super important. We talked about it at the Nail Your Niche section around Unique Genius. It's about who you are and what you stand for. And again, example there of Nike athletes versus Adidas athletes. That could be Starbucks coffee drinkers versus Costa coffee drinkers. It could be Canon photographers versus Nikon. Like, what is it that differentiates between those brands? And again, they're big brand examples, but there's absolutely no reason why any small business or even sole trader shouldn't have a unique personality of who they are. And it's not about your brand's personality, it's about what people think of your personality in terms of the target audience think of you. Next point then is building a customer journey map. And this is a really important point, I believe, in terms of really understanding what experience a customer has from the awareness stage right the way through to advocacy. So how they experience the marketing, the sales, maybe the service, the billings team, every function that interacts with the customer, having a customer journey that internally as a company, everyone knows where they fit in. As a company, as an employee, for me, it makes me feel part of a team rather than part of a wide part of the company rather than part of an individual team. So understanding the customer journey in terms of what a customer experiences, understanding from a company perspective what the employees experience and what they deliver, and ensuring those match up is a really important step to building your customer strategy. Next then, sounds super simple, but listen to your employees. They're the ones who know best. They talk to your customers every day. They're the ones, you talk to salespeople, they know what products maybe that are missing that competitors have. You talk to your service people, the ones that are talking to customers every day. They know what really grates customers, or the typical queries that come up again and again. So if you as a business are open and engaging with your employees, you can actually probably get the best source of customer feedback and focus group is your existing employees, to be able to bubble up what you want to achieve and where you might be able to gain that advantage on the competition or protect your business from a competitor moving in. And then the last point here is around developing a robust training framework. So again, ensuring that anyone that's in the business goes through a consistent way of being trained on the customer experience together with the company objectives, and everyone is super clear from the first moment they walk in the door of what they're here to do, what the role is here to do, and why they're, and where they fit into the goals of the company. Again, that being robust, being upgraded constantly training, and not being complacent that everyone understands what they should do. I think often that happens where everyone should know what to do. Often they don't, and that just, over time, that just creates a hugely confusing situation. And then the last slide here, we'll just talk about if you have that customer experience in already, and you know a lot of people on this call have customers and they're in the commercial space. You know, what kind of changes might you be able to do today that might actually improve that customer experience? So if you haven't got analytics in, it's a critical piece to get in terms of understanding how people experience your website, you know, what pages they go to, how long they spend on that website. So looking at the likes of Google Analytics is really important. Looking at, you know, phone analytics as well in terms of how long people stay on the phone, you know, what are the typical queries that are coming in over the phone lines versus email. Understanding all of those nuances can help you make tweaks and changes to embrace and or enhance, should I say, the customer experience. Second point then is giving free stuff away. So again, whether it's swag or merchandise or whatever it might be, it really does engender a lot of loyalty to proactively give a gift. It might be an ebook or a webinar, for example, that people can come to and go to and get some insights and knowledge. It's a really wonderful thing to be able to do, and it doesn't need to cost anything, but the perception from a customer improves their experience dramatically. Improving your digital channels. So how do you communicate with customers and how do they communicate with you? So again, if you don't have you know, maybe you have a chat function that you've introduced. It's another aspect, another way that a customer can get in touch with you. You know, ensuring that the phone lines, you know, have the right type of technology if your business is in that way, to be able to give hold messages and different options. You know, if you're a sole trader, you know, ensuring, you know, as simply as you have a clear voicemail and you get back to people on time. Those little things make a huge difference. So ensuring that all channels, digital and non-digital, can be improved. Provide a personalized experience. So again, that might be as little as the next time you send out you know, what is a product or service, putting a short handwritten note into a customer to say thank you, or you know, as salespeople and as the company builds up knowledge of your existing customers, you're going to build up profiles of who they are, what they do. You might have 2 or 3 kids, might have a dog. You know, you don't want to come over intrusive, but at the same time, those small little nuggets of knowledge and insight just shows that you really care about them, and they're not just a number. They're actually, and people want to feel that way. And again, this is how you protect from the vultures of the competitors taking your business. And this is how you really engage and can engage customers in a meaningful way. Second last point here is around gather and listen to customer feedback. You know, talk to customers often, and not just customers, talk to customers that have left you and ask them to give you feedback on why they left you. Again, this costs nothing and can give you a huge insight, as well as the previous slide around, or 2 slides back on the employee feedback. It can give you huge insights in terms of how you might be able to optimize a customer feedback and that customer experience. And then the last piece then is around empowering your team with a searchable knowledge base. So again, this, you know, this can be, you know, an Atlassian or other kind of quite expensive functions that might bring into a business, or it could be Google Sites, which is a free tool where you can actually build a whole intranet for your company and put different folders and different files and everything in the one place. So everyone knows where to go for the right information, accurate information, rather than living on email and living in someone's head, even worse. So again, building that consistent searchable knowledge base is one of the most important things you can do if you want to improve the customer experience. So I'll leave it at that, Carl. I think we're just gone maybe slightly over time, and I'll hand it over to you.
Brilliant, Rory. Thanks a million. Captivated audience all the way. Fabulous. So I said at the start that just a couple of things again, reminder that this webinar is being recorded and we can share the link afterwards. And as I say, very captivated audience there. But if any questions, feel free to type them into chat and we will monitor it. But at this point, I'm now going to hand over to Denise Rux from Regional Skills West, who's going to go through some polling, and then we'll finish off with the Q&A in the next few minutes. So Denise, over to you.
Thanks, Carol, and thanks, Rory, for taking the time and giving up your morning to share this information so freely with us. And a big thank you to NUI Galway for stepping away from all the students that they're trying to get through their degrees and all this online and the pandemic and everything, to be able to offer this session in collaboration with the SkillNet, you know, free of charge to everyone. So thanks so much. And as Carol mentioned earlier, in NUI Galway's marketing department, they've been working really closely with Carol and myself and the other members of the Sales Professionals Network, and they have such a good industry collaboration that they're constantly, you know, bringing ideas like this to the fore. So just to mention there. So leading on from that, the reason we mentioned that is because we were exploring and discussing in our meetings whether to offer, whether NUI Galway would offer in collaboration with the Galway Executive SkillNet a short course in September for those of you who would be interested in kind of getting more information on this topic, more of a workshop style course, maybe something more interactive about applying all of this to your business. So before they go to all the effort of doing that, we just wanted to check with you guys whether it makes sense and what interests you about it. So if you can go to www.menti.com and enter this code 763908. Hopefully you can see that on your screen now anyway. If you go to menti.com and enter that code, it'll allow you to vote. We have a couple of questions. There's only 3 or 4 questions. They're pretty easy. So I'll take us through them now. So again, go to menti.com and put in the code 763908. So the first question is a really simple one, and it's kind of just to make sure everyone can use the system, and also so we get an understanding of who's attending. So, oh, someone's filled it in already. So this will populate live in front of us. So if you can just type in or select which role you have in your daily life. So are you a business owner? Are you a sales and marketing manager, another business professional? So you can see it starting to populate, and this is all anonymous. So we're not going to see who said what or anything like that. We're just keen to get feedback so we can figure out what makes sense in terms of putting on next steps of support around this. Great, people are filling in. And I would just ask for the following slides, if you are a student, to please not answer the next few slides. We're not discriminating against students. It's just that the course that we're looking at developing will be for people who are in business, either already working in business or who are small business owners, for example. So everyone can answer this first slide. You can see 12 people have answered already, so we'll leave that going and move on to the next slide. But keep answering, because it'll still be there for those of you who haven't answered yet. Do answer. So the next question then is just to rank the topics that Rory addressed, if you can rank those in order of importance for you. So you should be able to see on menti.com that a way to rank these in order of importance. So first being the most important. So once we see one person starting to do that, we'll move on, but hopefully you're managing. There we go, it's starting to work. Great, so someone's put sales pipeline first. This will keep moving and shifting as different people respond. So keep responding. We'll be able to share the results, you know, after the presentation anyway. But do keep answering, because it's really important for us for understanding how we can keep supporting local businesses. So I'll go on to the next question, but keep answering the previous ones. Again, if you're a student, please stop answering, just so we're targeting the business audience. So here's where the rubber really hits the road. We want to know how many of you are interested in actually taking a short course or workshop from NUI Galway's marketing department on this sales and marketing strategy alignment. So kind of a deeper dive workshop. Oh, okay, I don't need to explain anymore. You all got the hang of it. So you can either strongly agree or disagree with the statement. It looks like so far we're getting strongly agree. And it's really cool because you can see this moving as we go. And we wanted to know how important it was to accredit it or not. You know, does it matter to you that you get a certificate from NUI Galway or not? And then there will be some subsidies for this. So we are going to put whatever funding we can to it, but there probably will be some small fee. So we just wanted to make sure and see how that affects people's willingness to attend. So it looks like there's some very positive responses there anyway. And again, if you're a student, please don't answer, because we know you're already studying. So the last question then is just, and keep answering the other ones, but the last question then is just about ranking the ideal delivery format. So it is going to be an online course, obviously, given the current circumstances. But when we say course, it's probably going to be very interactive, very participative, very applied. But we just wanted to know then, you know, Okay, you're answering. We wanted to know which suited you best. Is it shorter sessions of just 1.5 hours spread over a period of time? Is it better to have like half-day sessions where you're concentrating completely for half a day, or would you rather take a full day out to focus on this? And again, it would be online, but very participative, so it's not the same as just sitting listening for the day. So people are answering there. I think we're good. So if you guys can keep answering that, I'll hand back over to Carol and the Q&A so that Rory can start answering some of your other questions while we have you answer our questions on this poll. So keep responding to the poll in the meantime. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Denise. That's great stuff. So would anybody like to ask a question? The chat box has been quiet. Actually, here's one in from Joanne. Rory, I'll just call it out for anyone who can't see it. And Joanne asks, you mentioned being an active listener and asking open-ended questions will differentiate a good salesperson at an interview. As someone who's looking to kickstart their career in sales, any other tips, advice for someone at entry-level sales for interviews?
Yeah, I think, so at entry level, I think, and again, if I'm just thinking of folks I would interview and hire at an entry level, what I really look for is that they are organized. They can demonstrate that when they put their mind to something, they're able to plot a path to get there, and they have a discipline to get there as well. So again, you don't need to have sales experience to answer that question. You know, we often have hired in the past people without sales experience are making a decision to move from a totally different industry into sales. But again, you're really looking to be able to demonstrate that as a salesperson, I'm able to take a step back, make a plan of what I need to do, understand my pipeline, understand where I spend time, you know, is able to self-reflect on what they're good at, but also quite critical of where they struggle, and is coachable. Like that is just a critical piece for me, is that someone, you know, it's not always in ample supply, but someone that is thirsty to learn, and they know they don't know a lot, but they want to learn. And that type of attitude, I would take that person any day over someone who has 10 years sales experience. Because if someone isn't open to adapting, to changing, to, you know, buying into a company culture and a way of working, and then it's going to be very difficult for that person to have long-term success. So they're probably the bits that I would advise. I think is, you know, if you have drive, if there's something in the past that you put your mind to and you're able to break it down into the component parts of how you're going to achieve it, that translates brilliantly onto actually how you're going to put a pipeline in place to achieve a sales goal. And that's what I would look for quite a lot when I'm interviewing people.
Great stuff, thanks. And I think it relates back to a point that you made. I think I'd say a few people picked up on it early enough, I think, in the presentation. This thing about that concept of he or she's a born salesperson. You know, I think we all grew up with that thing. And clearly there are some people who are innate born sales people, but all the evidence proves that it is not, that if you're not born with all the sales thing, that you, as you say, you can learn this. And this is what this is all about. That if you focus on what you do, so just to give people that encouragement or advice that, you know, follow the process and you can be as successful as anybody. You don't necessarily have to be that outgoing, extrovert, gregarious, pushy, whatever. So
spot on, Carl. Like some of the best salespeople I know are introverts, but they have, you know, a very organized way of working, and they actually do so much work to become that consultative, that, you know, trusted advisor of the prospect, that they actually engender so much trust when they engage with a prospect that they don't need to be the loudest person in the room or the one that's potentially showing off. Often that's a front, and behind it isn't quite the substance that will make salespeople successful. So
yeah, I suppose it's a combination of everybody has their own individual strengths and characteristics, and there's a process to follow, and you've got to mold the two and tailor it.
Absolutely, and don't turn your back on your, like, you don't need to change. You don't need to be like someone else, and that's the thing. I think a lot of salespeople think that, you know, the top salesperson, I need to start acting like him or her, and I'm gonna, you know, walk around and tell people what to do, and I'm gonna be pushy. But if that's not in you, you've just lost authenticity, which is probably the most attractive trait personally and professionally that's going to make you successful. So it needs to fit with you. It needs to, you know, it needs to be natural for you, and you need to, you know, you need to find your own style. but then be open to pushing the boundaries of doing things a little bit different as well, to be able to, I suppose, kick on and get to a different level of performance that you might like to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff. Denise also has one here. How would you apply the guidance you gave to B2B businesses?
Yeah, so I'm in a B2B business, and I would adhere to the guidance delivered. Honestly, I think, again, you know, when it comes to understanding customer buying cycles and sorry, B2C.
Sorry, I hit the wrong key clearly.
No worries at all. Again, you know, I think from a B2C perspective, and you're probably quite right, the examples I gave are probably a narrative is a little bit more B2B, so apologies for that. But I think from a B2C perspective, honestly, I don't think the fundamentals are broken all that different. Like you need to understand your customer. Like you need to understand their buying behaviors. You need to understand their personas. Like who is your customer? And you know, if you haven't got it already, you know, as a business, you should have a persona who your ideal customer is. You can give them a name. They probably have an age group. They probably have, you know, their likes, their dislikes, and building up that profile of a customer in a B2C is the exact same as what you would do in a company, whereby you build up, you know, profile of the number of employees, maybe their turnover, their industry, and key influencers, all of that. You just put the same persona onto your B2C, and you build that persona against it. And again, you know, I think when it comes to customer retention and the customer experience, it all rings true. You know, really putting the customer first, whether it's a B2B or B2C, is for me is secondary. The fundamentals, I believe, are absolutely adaptable between B2B and B2C.
Okay, thank you. And it's a comment from Monica Nielsen from the GMIT, who's very active in our sales professional network, and it's bearing out what we were saying earlier, that the research clearly shows the most important characteristic for successful salespeople is empathy, particularly with the customer, and that the listening skills, particularly the active listening. And just an observation from Francis, who started out in working life a while ago. Her manager treated company reps with contempt. Felt sorry for them, resulted in a fear of sales. Yeah, however, with today's social media, I find it's lifted the barrier, and that the person-to-person cold calling is not as confrontational. Certainly, this stigma of the salesperson, that certainly was, I think, I speak for myself, my generation grew up with that, and even coming from a marketing discipline, there was kind of the sense of, yeah, they're the ones out there who have to be that, all what we were saying there, this aggressive ego who's pushing the product. But I think, you know, again, this conversation is around, no, it's a very different world we're living in now. It's not so.
Yeah, I think so, Carl, and you're spot on with the observation, Francis. I think, you know, your Wolf of Wall Street movies, your Glengarry Glen Rosses, your Boiler Rooms have all characterized salespeople as cutthroat, would sell their grandmother for a deal type of individuals, and were treated with contempt, but honestly, for me, salespeople are the rock stars of companies, and you know, sales and marketing going hand in hand. You know, a really kind of progressive business that thinks about inside sales and really thinks about growth. Like it's the engine of and growth. You know, in today's time might seem daunting or maybe near impossible, as some people might think of it. But honestly, you know, I think people should be ambitious about growth now. Like, you know, we all entered into COVID-19 fairly quickly, and it's those of us that I fundamentally believe that are putting the right using the time that we have when things have slowed to actually really get that customer experience nailed. Really ensure that first touch marketing through sales, through the service, through billing, through every interaction with a customer is all singing off the same hymn sheet, and they all understand where they fit in. Like a tight team that understands, whether it's sport or business, understands who they are, what they're here to do, and what everyone's role is. People who understand that are successful. And I think sales people play a huge role in that, and they drive that growth. So, you know, I for a while, I started off in sales and radio sales, probably 15, 16 years ago at this stage up in Dublin. And I never called myself a salesperson. You know, as a relationship manager, I called myself everything but a salesperson. And it was my first time in sales, and because I had the same type of permutations of feelings towards salespeople, I think. But I can absolutely say on the journey I've been on and where I am today, I'm very, very proud to call myself a salesperson. And it's not a dirty word. It is the fuel that drives growth, and it is and we should be ambitious. Just because we're in the west of Ireland or an SMB or a sole trader, that doesn't mean we should be ambitious. Absolutely, we should be ambitious.
100%. Another point that you made, it came through your presentation, was, you know, don't lose sight of the fact that, well, some people kind of think, yeah, okay, that's grand, but you have sales and marketing over there. That's not me. Just said is we're all sales people. Everyone in the company. That thing about listening to customer feedback, the chance to gain a referral, what have you. There's so many touch points, especially in this what you call the flywheel and all these touch points in social media. It's never more important than ever.
Yeah, absolutely, Karen, and that's why I hopefully it came out in the presentation. And apologies for using maybe some big company examples and that, but as I said at the outset, the fundamentals are no different. Absolutely no different.
Yeah, no, I think what you said there. I mean, my own personal career, I haven't ever worked for a big multinational. I worked in small companies, but everything you said there, I could absolutely relate to my current role, selling and marketing training, are down to previous roles. It's everything you said there absolutely made sense. I didn't look at anything and think, that's fine for the big guys. Not at all. Certainly my observation. Folks, it's 12:05. We still have almost 50 people here, which shows that the interest level that we have. So maybe just to wrap it here, I maybe invite, would anybody like to actually make a comment? Would anybody like to contribute, to speak? Give one final comment. Sure. before we do a wrap.
I'll have a go.
Come in there, Jerry, is it?
Thanks, Carl. It's Jerry. Yes. Hi, Rory.
Hey, Jerry. How are you?
Thank you very much. I kind of have a real belief, even as time passes more and more, into the actual importance of marketing to actually boost and support the generation of business sales, i.e. And I'm just curious, in one of your slides, which is really good, you showed the traditional funnel method, if you like, and the latest, the snake approach that's going on right now. And in the marketing side, there's a lot of, new techniques, digital marketing, social media, etc. Just a comment, in terms of maybe your own business, or as you see it in general, the most effective marketing tools nowadays that you would say we must be doing this or we must be doing that. You know what I mean? In terms of supporting the sales function.
Yeah, great question, Jerry. I think first and foremost, it's your shop window, it's your website, and that needs to be easy to navigate. It needs to, if you're doing SEM, AdWords, or whatever it might be, it needs to get those potential prospects into the place where they can get their answers as quickly as possible. So again, think of websites from a customer perspective, not from the company's perspective. And I think that often happens is we design things that we like, but we may not actually really take as much consideration into what our customers or future prospects might like. So that's the first piece. I think when it comes to other methods that work really well, I think I fundamentally believe that, if you look at the sales and marketing function, when they work in silos versus when they work together, you can often have a marketing function that's pushing out emails to prospects, and it's, subject headers is, we've got an offer on, or whatever it might be. And then the salespeople react to what comes in. What I often see works very well is, again, it's integrating both of those together. So you might have a sequenced approach whereby you lead with an email, 2 or 3 days later, the salesperson calls, because it's not a cold call per se. If they've received an email, you're calling about the email, and if they have any questions about it. I, the salesperson, on day 3 post email, haven't managed to get through to the customer, so another email might go out a week later, and then the salesperson might check in again. So you just have this integrated way of working whereby the salespeople are complementing what's being put out in the email, and the email is developing based on the customer's interaction. So it may add different pieces of information as hooks, and the salesperson's sales pitch is totally aligned with the content that's going out. And this is what often doesn't happen: is the sales pitch is one sales pitch, and the marketing content is a different message. and the salesperson is speaking to someone who's been sold a marketing vision, and they're actually pushing and ramming something down this person's throat that is something totally different. So that's a hugely important technique, is ensuring that what we put out there from a marketing perspective is totally understood and is done in conjunction with the salespeople, and they actually use that as an avenue to outreach and engage. And then listen, I think from a social perspective, I think, you know, again, this isn't a cost exercise at all, but I think whenever a company might be wanting to shout about something and put something out there, having a coherent social strategy for how that's pushed out, ensuring that all salespeople push it out through their LinkedIn or whatever, or Twitter, whatever formats they use, that there's an approved content that's consistent that goes out into the marketplace. And again, everything we're saying here doesn't cost money. You know, website design may cost a bit, granted, but the other two methods are just sitting down, talking about things. And first and foremost, I think, Jerry, is ensuring that the end goals of sales and marketing are the same. Like, it has to be the same, because if you are not working backwards from a shared goal, you're going to try and optimize what each department is doing to hit whatever your end goal is. And if they're not the same, you're moving there's a divergence between what's happening. So I think first and foremost, sales and marketing, to that first slide that we had there of them looking the other way and not talking to each other, from the top down, whether it's a sole trader or whether it's a small or medium-sized business, a large business, the same goal needs to be in place. And that, you know, for me, fundamentally needs to be new customers and growth and a new customer number, whether it's revenue, whether it's units. And if both sales and marketing, because you can get all the leads you like in the world, but if they're not actually quality leads that are coming from marketing that sales are able to convert through that funnel like we looked at earlier, what's the point? So you're better off getting less leads that are really in that niche and knowing that niche, and they're the right type of prospects, and you're able to convert them in with a high velocity. So probably just a few bits off the top of my head, and again, just purposely not wanting to talk about expensive tools and systems. I prefer maybe to just, you know, share a couple of thoughts around what we could probably go away this afternoon or next week and put something in place that won't cost a dime.
Excellent, thank you. Very good.
Good man, Jerry. Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Great stuff. Listen, folks, at this point, I think let's call it. We've gone 10 minutes over, but we were delighted, happy to stay on and do this. And the fact that you've stayed with us, the vast majority of people, actually, you know, speaks volumes, I think. So at this point, I just want to thank everybody. There's a lovely comment there came in towards the end from Karina, which I think is very reflective of what's come through. She said, fantastic presentation. Myself, I'm not in sales, but so much of what you spoke about, Rory, has been such a light bulb moment. So I look forward to progressing with this mentality. That's really well put. And if we could have that attitude shared across the west of Ireland, the future of enterprise is safe. So folks, thank you very much. As we said, as I teed up at the start and Denise followed through with there, we're going to scrutinize all the feedback that you've given us there. We intend to roll out with a deeper dive into these topics with Rory and the NUI Galway team. And so we'll put that together and see what's the best format. It's really good feedback as to, you know, the duration of sessions and how far they span and, you know, how much detail is involved. So can you leave that with us? And I promise you, we will very heavily subsidize that through the Galway Executive Skillnet. I make a commitment that we'll do that because this topic is just too important. So on my behalf, the team of Galway Executive Skillnet and my right-hand woman, Alicia Callahan, who keeps the machine running behind the scenes. Thanks, Alicia, for helping with this as well. Denise, Regional Skills West. This comes out of the Sales Professional Network Initiative. Thanks a million. It's great to collaborate. All the team, Anne Walsh and Patricia McHugh in the J.E. Kearns School of Business and Economics in NUI Galway. I'm getting it right, Anne, haven't I? Thanks a million. And the star of the show, who gave of his time freely this morning, Rory Conroy of SiteMinder. Rory, thank you ever so much. Class act. Thanks all.
Just to let everyone know that we have these sales peer mentoring sessions that are on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. for the next 2 weeks, just continuing. So we've had a great response to them so far. It's again the Sales Professionals Network. So the next one is the coming Wednesday at 10 a.m. And we can send a link out, I guess, with the notes to all the participants on the call. But just to let you know, and we've had, I know some people from those meetings have come and joined us today. So just to advise, it's a group of small businesses together with an expert panel of mentors helping them get through. So I think Carla is probably sharing details on that now.
Right.
And I
Yeah,
think
I can
Carla
see
has
that.
a SkillNet event as well coming up.
Yeah, and we actually have another event happening on Tuesday week at 2 p.m. Another marketing masterclass, 5 disciplines of pandemic marketing with Pádraig Amárla, who will be known to many of you. So guys, there's so much great content out there and willingness of people to give of their time. And so particularly thanks to everyone today, especially Rory. And yeah, I think that's it for now. Have a great weekend all, and we look forward to hopefully engaging with some of you in the autumn to have a deeper dive into this. Okay, thanks everyone.
Super, thank you.
Yeah, God bless.